Daniel had just turned 19. After finishing his first year at university, he came home to visit his mother, the woman who raised him alone, strong yet distant. One rainy afternoon, bored and nostalgic, Daniel climbed up to the attic, looking for some old comic books. But instead, he found a dusty trunk. Inside, wrapped in a floral scarf, was an old black and white photo, his mom, much younger, standing next to a man he didn't recognize. Behind the photo, an envelope labeled for Daniel, when he's old enough, rested between aged books. With trembling hands, he opened it. Letters fell out, several of them, all written in his mother's handwriting. The words within would shift everything he believed about her. He sat alone on his bed, the first letter clutched tightly. It began warmly, then turned emotional and finally painfully honest. "I never told you about Julian." It read, "He was more than a friend. He was the man I loved when I was just your age. But there were choices I made, and one night that changed my life forever. You came from that night?" Daniel's heart pounded. His father was not a mystery by accident. He was erased. His mother had hidden her past, her passion, her pain. The next letter was more raw. She wrote of a sensual summer romance filled with desire, vulnerability, and heartbreak. She confessed to fearing judgment and to protecting Daniel from a truth she herself could barely live with. That evening, Daniel couldn't look at his mother the same way. When she brought him tea and sat by the window, her face calm, he noticed things he hadn't before: the way she seemed to carry something heavy beneath her composed smile. "Did you ever love someone you couldn't keep?" he asked softly. She froze, her eyes narrowing. "Why do you ask?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The silence between them grew thick, but in that quiet, something cracked open. She reached over, placing her hand on his. "I was young. I made mistakes," she whispered, "but not telling you was the hardest one." The way she looked at him, no longer just as a mother, but as a woman who had lived, desired, and broken, made Daniel feel something new: compassion, confusion, and an unexpected intimacy in knowing her truth. Later that night, Daniel stood in front of the mirror, letters spread across his desk. He saw himself differently now, as a product of a hidden story, a secret passion, and a woman who had once surrendered to her own desires. He felt strange heat stir inside, not toward her, but toward the idea of her as a woman, not just a mother. In the final letter, she had written, "If you ever read this, know that I never stopped being human. I loved, I lost, and yes, I desired. Don't ever be ashamed of your hunger to understand yourself or others." The words lingered. He remembered how his mother would sometimes cry at night, silently, behind closed doors. Now he understood why. Days passed. They didn't speak of the letters again, not directly, but the air between them had changed. She didn't hide her gaze anymore, and Daniel no longer looked away from her history. One night, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, she reached into her bag and slid another letter toward him. "I wrote this after you were born," she said, "but I couldn't bring myself to send it. It was for Julian." Daniel took it, hands shaking. Later, in his room, he opened it. Her words were full of raw love and desire, addressed to a man she lost, a man Daniel now resembled. And somewhere, buried in the hurt and the sensual echoes of her past, Daniel understood something deeper: that people, even those we love most, are layered full of flaws, hunger, and longing. And sometimes, healing begins when we see them fully.